All right. So welcome everyone. Again, my name is Jenna Caputo. I am the area coordinator for Be Well in Residential Life, and I use she, her pronouns. So this session is about the Community Compact, which is something that you all have been asked to sign in order to help ensure that the Mount Holyoke community is a safe space and that we can all have a good semester for the spring of 2021. A couple of notes, this is a webinar format, which means that you can see and hear me, but I cannot see or hear you. So throughout, the best way to get in touch with me if you have questions is that Q&A function up at the top. You're more than welcome to use the chat as well to connect with one another. If somebody wants to offer their experience to a question that's asked, etc. But I will mostly be monitoring the Q&A. And I speak for and work for Residential Life. However, feel free to ask me any other questions that you have about move-in or about any other pieces of this process. I will do my very best to answer, and I won't make up the answer if I don't know. I'll tell you that you should connect with another department. So I just wanted to kind of put those things out there. And then one more thing is that this is the community compact that you've all agreed to. And the guidelines that we're sharing are the guidelines as we know them right now. But as we've all seen throughout the pandemic, state and federal guidelines and even guidance from the college has caused us to need to pivot. And so while we hope that any pivots would be something that could give you more freedoms in terms of, for example, being able to walk around outside without a mask on eventually, we can't make any guarantees. So just understand that, like everything else about this year, this is something that may have to be fluid, but we are giving you the information that we have asked everyone to agree to. Everything pretty much that we're sharing can be found in the community compact. So you're also welcome to consult that. And with that, I will go ahead and get started. So this graphic illustrates how COVID-19 spreads, has to do with the source emission strength, personal protection, the crowdedness of a space, and this is the reason why we will be limiting the capacity of rooms where students are allowed to gather, the time that you spend in the shared airspace, whether you are inside or outside, and finally the volume of the shared airspace. Facial coverings. So as I'm sure you all have heard by this point, it is very important for us all to wear facial coverings. If you're a COVID-19 carrier, your risk of infecting others goes down significantly if you're wearing a mask. And likewise, if you're a healthy person, wearing a mask does reduce your risk of getting COVID-19. So to recap, where should you be wearing a facial covering? In the dining commons, in your residence hall common room, at the gym, anytime you leave your room, or all of the above? And the answer is all of the above. So anytime that you are outside your residence hall room, you are expected to be wearing a facial covering. The only exception to this is when you're either washing your face, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, etc. And in those instances, you should still wear your facial covering on the way to the bathroom, but you can remove it once you get there for those moments that you need to. So otherwise, anytime that you're outside your room, you should have a facial covering. Physical distancing. So you've probably all heard 6 feet apart a whole bunch throughout the pandemic. And this is an expectation that we have for the Mount Holyoke community, that you practice physical distancing by staying at least 6 feet apart from other community members at all times. If you need help visualizing what 6 feet looks like, it's a yoga mat, 2 golden retrievers, a couch, the length of a mattress. In many locations, for example, where lines are going to form, there'll be floor markers, and we ask that you respect the floor markers. And also in some shared spaces, furniture has been either rearranged or blocked off in order to facilitate social distancing. And again, we ask that you respect that and not move the furniture around if it's been rearranged to encourage social distancing. Hand washing. I'm thinking by this point in your life and in the pandemic, you know how to wash your hands. However, I'm going to go over this anyway. So you'll wet, lather, and scrub for at least 20 seconds. Happy birthday twice, or whatever your favorite song is that you will be sure lasts 20 seconds. Rinse and then dry. And as a reminder, hand washing is always better than hand sanitizing. However, hand sanitizing is better than not anything. Residence hall expectations. So students are allowed to have one other student who lives in their building visit their student room. So this means that no matter how big your room is, you can only have one other student in your room at a time. You can have different students in your rooms at different times, but only one at any given time. You'll be assigned bathrooms and particular fixtures that you'll share with a small group of students for the semester. And you may only use your assigned fixtures when using the restrooms in your residence hall. So by fixtures, we mean your toilet stall, shower, and sink. So when you arrive, you'll have tags that you put your name on, and then you affix to the outside of those fixtures to identify them as yours. And there's a certain number of residents per fixture that are allowed, and your CAs or RFs will let you know what that number is for your building. But mostly we just want you as spread out as possible among the fixtures. And then finally, students will receive a lanyard and ID holder during move-in. And this is something that must be worn and visible at all times when you are walking around campus. So this specific lanyard must be worn. This is how you're identified as a student who's allowed to be on campus, who is following all the necessary safety precautions. So your group, the group that you told us you wanted to live in the same residence hall as. This is not a pod. Your group ensured that you lived in the same residence hall so that you would have part of your support system near you, acknowledging that you're not able to visit other residence halls. So while some of you may live near your groups, you cannot interact with them differently than you would interact with other residents. This means you can only have one of them in your room at a time. You must wear facial coverings around each other, etc. Food. So food should only be eaten in your room or in designated spaces on campus. Now, at present, we don't have any designated spaces. Food can only be eaten in your room. As the semester goes on, following that 2-week quarantine period where we're trying to be extra cautious, it is possible that we'll be able to open some other spaces. For example, picnic tables outside that we can designate as an eating space. Dining Commons has made a request to the Board of Health to see if we can get some of their space open for safe, socially distant dining. So it is something that we're working on, but for the moment, the only place you can eat is your room because that's the only place you can have your mask off. And we understand how difficult that is. We will do our best to provide programming during meal times, and we also encourage you to virtually connect with one another during those times. And again, as soon as we can allow more options, we will. But for the meantime, food cannot be eaten in Blanchard Hall, academic buildings, etc., or the lobbies of those buildings, as masks must be worn at all times. So eating on campus. Where can I eat on campus? In the library, in Kendall, in Blanchard Community Center, both B&E, or in my room. And the answer is only in your room. Campus radius. So all students living on campus are expected to stay within a 10-mile driving distance from campus. This is driving, not as the crow flies. And should you need to leave the 10-mile radius for extenuating circumstances, you can make a request to Student Life that will be granted on a case-by-case basis. Every effort will be made to keep you within the radius and support offered. However, if you do need to leave the radius, you will be forced to follow all state guidelines for return, which may or may not mean quarantining, for example, state and college guidelines, which may mean quarantining or other considerations to keep you safe and keep others safe when you re-enter the community. And I also want to highlight, I will get to questions at the end, but if what I'm saying is giving you a question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the Q&A now. So radius test. So how do you know whether you can go to your destination or not? So you will open your map app of choice, maps.google.com, Google Maps app, Apple Maps app, whatever works for you. You'll type in 50 College Street as the place that you currently are, and then the destination that you'd like to go to. If it is more than a 10-mile driving distance from campus, unfortunately, you are not allowed to go there. However, if it is within a 10-mile driving distance from campus, you are allowed to go there, and you must follow all guidelines with regards to physical distancing, facial covering, wearing, etc., even when you're off campus. Visitors on campus. So no guests are permitted in the residence halls or in any MHC building for this semester, or at least for now. This prohibition includes overnight and daytime guests, and a guest is anyone who does not live in your residence hall. So you must refrain from visiting other residence halls except the one that you live in. You will not have one-card access to those spaces and cannot be let into those spaces. You can meet up with those living in other buildings outside. Now, this is after your 2-day quarantine when you arrive on campus. Until you receive your first negative test, you must remain in your room. You can leave to go use the restroom or to pick up food, which will be delivered to your residence hall. So to recap, who is allowed in the residence hall I live in? My friends from Amherst, my family on move-in day, anyone who is approved to live on campus, or none of the above? And the answer is none of the above. So unfortunately, even on move-in day, we cannot allow visitors or guests in the residence halls. So this means that you should plan accordingly with what you've packed and ensure that it is something that you can move yourself. Elevators and dumbwaiters, we hope, are totally functional and totally available. But as we all know, sometimes curveballs happen. So make sure that everything that you have packed are things that you can carry with you and that you're able to move into your room on your own. So again, no visitors are allowed in any campus building. All academic, social, and athletic spaces will be closed for the first 2 weeks for the campus quarantine, but Kendall Blanchard and the library do have plans to open with limited capacity and limited hours after February 1st. Other spaces may open after February 1st, considering staffing needs, the case numbers on our campus, etc. You'll get more information about that as the semester goes on, if new spaces are going to become available. So here's my first plug to make sure that you're frequently checking your Mount Holyoke email and actually reading the emails that we send you so that you know what opportunities are available to you. In order to get into a building on campus, residential students and approved faculty and staff will have to swipe in using their one card. So this is true even for buildings that you're used to being able to just walk into, like Blanchard. And facial coverings must be worn at all times on campus grounds. So this includes when physical distancing is possible. This is a change to how it was at the beginning of the fall semester because of the order from the governor about facial covering wearing. So at all times on campus, you must wear your facial covering unless the exceptions I mentioned about being in your room or in the restroom. So that means that even if you are in the middle of the green and there's nobody in sight, you do still have to wear your facial covering. You can meet up with those living in other buildings or those visiting from off campus outside. So at present, campus is closed to the public. However, following the end of the campus quarantine, we hope to reopen campus to the public. And at that point, you are welcome to have people on campus as your guests. Again, they can't go into any campus building, but you can certainly meet up with them outside. We do expect that physical distancing and facial covering wearing guidelines are being followed. Testing protocol. So all students on campus must participate in twice weekly testing and contact tracing to preserve the wellness of the community. So students will have an account in a system called CareEvolve where they will be able to review their twice weekly test results. So the first time you have a test result available, you'll receive an email from CareEvolve that'll ask you to set up an account. And then subsequently, each time you have a result, you'll be able to just log in, super mobile friendly site, and view your result. If you receive a positive result, you'll be contacted by the Mount Holyoke College Health Center and then walked through the next steps, which will include isolation and contact tracing. It is possible that you would see the email that you were positive before the call from the health center, but likely the call from the health center will come first. How to sign up for COVID testing. So I'm going to show you screenshots in just a minute, but first I want to go through the overall process. So you'll log into Embark using your MHC credentials. Hopefully you have some experience with Embark since that was how you registered for this. Then you'll click on COVID testing sign up event, and then you'll select the day and time you'd like to get your COVID test. So a note that you need to be tested twice per week on days that are not next to each other. And the COVID testing center is closed on Wednesdays. So what this means is you need to be tested once on Monday or Tuesday and once on Thursday or Friday. And then you'll get a registration confirmation. So to walk you through it a little bit more, you will log into Embark using your MHC credentials. You'll see this screen, and then you'll click on the COVID testing sign up event. COVID testing sign up does have to happen each week. So you are welcome to keep the same time. We recommend it because then it becomes more of your routine, but whatever works for you, just make sure that you are signing up for 2 COVID tests per week. You'll come to this screen, which shows you a little bit more about the event. And then you'll get to this screen where you'll pick your days. So again, one on Monday or Tuesday and one on Thursday or Friday. You'll pick your times. They are half-hour windows, and it is limited the number of students that can sign up for each window. The number of people in general, actually, because faculty and staff and others are using the testing center as well. But this is to facilitate physical distancing and also a quicker wait at the testing center. So if your time is not there, unfortunately, you do just have to pick a different time and to go for your COVID test. And again, you do this each week. And then that's it. You'll get this page that says that you're registered. You'll also get a confirmation to your Mount Holyoke email, and then you will just show up on the day of your test. And that is the content that I have for you. So a couple other things I want to note. Our email address is res-life@mtholyoke.edu. Do note that during this move-in period, we're doing our very best to answer every question, and also are a staff of 6. And so if your question is not time sensitive, you may have to wait a little bit to get a response, but we are doing our best. We will try very hard to connect with you. Also, the community compact can be viewed at this link. In addition, you can go to the Mount Holyoke website and just type in community compact and it'll bring you there. If you haven't already accepted the community compact on My Mount Holyoke prior to arrival, you must do that in order to get your key. So I would recommend just going ahead and doing that now. And finally, there's a community compact quiz. So you have to either use this QR code, that link. I'm also going to drop the link in the chat. In order to get credit for attending this session, the requirements are that you take that quiz and that you're part of the participant list for this session. And I will go ahead and drop it in the chat right now. Go ahead and start putting, well, I see it, you've already started, but continue putting questions in the Q&A and I will get to answering them. All right, link is in the chat. And I see a question about whether or not you need to sign up to get tested on move-in day. And the answer is no. When you signed up and embark for your move-in window, the first stop that you'll make will be to get your COVID test. So when you arrive on campus, you will go directly to CAR, which is where our COVID testing center is set up. So you'll enter across from Reese, and you'll go through a symptom check and the testing process there. Then you'll go to Blanchard. Even if you live in a building that doesn't require a key, you will get your welcome swag key if you need it. And then that's also where you can get a blue cart. And you can, to help you with moving. If you stored on campus last semester, that's where you let us know that you need to be escorted to the storage room, because that does have to happen right as you're moving in. And then you'll have 2 hours to move into your residence hall. So where on campus does testing take place? In CAR, which is like in next to Kendade. There's lots of signs. Music rooms in Pratt are not open, are they? So at present, basically between now and February 1st, very little is open. The dining commons will be open for students who have had a negative test to do takeout. And residence halls, obviously, where you're living, will be open. Other than that, services are very limited. So, for example, you could go pick up your package from Ox, but you can't like hang out there. And so the same is true for Pratt, since that's a space that people would be spending time. It is not an option right now. After February 1st, an effort will be made to give you options, whether that's music practice rooms within the residence halls or opening some of those spaces in Pratt potentially, depending on how things are going. So any of that would be communicated to you when we get to that point. What does support look like for students who receive a positive test result? Health services, food delivered to room? Yes, all of that. So we have a quarantine and isolation housing coordinator whose job it is to provide support to those students with the everyday things, making sure that you know the process when you're in there, facilitating, like, for example, if you have mail and you need someone to pick up your mail for you, things like that. But basically what will happen if you test positive is that you'll be moved to isolation housing. Similar, basically everything I'm saying is true for quarantine too. So if you're a close contact, you'll be moved to quarantine housing. But in all cases, you enter this space where you are required to stay until your quarantine or isolation period is over. And that's done in consultation with health services. Health services does check in with you frequently and is available to you as needed outside of their frequent check-ins. And so they'll make sure that you're doing okay, continue to see if you have symptoms. If you are in need of medication, they can help facilitate that, etc. Food will be delivered directly to your room. There'll be a menu that you can order off of directly. And then, yes, that food will be delivered to you. And if you need other support, certainly it can be provided. The quarantine and isolation housing coordinator is likely the one that would be facilitating that. So I hope that answered the question. And if it feels like it didn't, or I missed something, please go ahead and ask another question and I will gladly answer it. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And please continue asking questions if you have them. All right, well, I'm going to stay here to ensure that all questions are answered, but I do acknowledge the time, that we're almost at the end of our time. So before you go, I just want to say that the entire team in Student Life is here for you. We understand that this semester is weird and that we all have to do the very best we can to make it work. And we are happy to support you in any way that we possibly can in making this experience a positive one. So please reach out. Please let us know what we can do. We are absolutely here to support you. And we look forward to welcoming you back on campus, even if the semester is going to feel different than usual. So if you still have questions, and I see some more in the Q&A, please stick around. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to, stop the recording and give people permission to talk, for example, if that's helpful. And if you are feeling like you're good to go, your questions are answered, do make sure that you take that community compact quiz in order to get the credit for being here, and then you're free to go. Are bathroom fixtures assigned to us, or can we choose them like last semester? You can choose them depending on when you arrive. It is possible that there will be some that don't have any availability left because people have taken it. So within whatever the maximums are, you are welcome to choose your bathroom fixtures. Would students be given the vaccine if it went out to the public? Yeah, this is a great question that's coming up often. What are we doing about a vaccine? And what I can say is that our health services are in frequent contact about this. And if there is an option that becomes available, then and students are able to be offered the opportunity, you will absolutely hear about it from health services, and you will hear all the details about it. I'm not going to pretend to know what that is, and I don't even think the health center has an idea what that is right now. But absolutely, if it's an option, they will communicate about it. Other questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.